This guest is the president of Cleantech San Diego, Jason Anderson. Jason has been a huge supporter of Going Green from the very beginning. He was one of the very first guests we ever had on the podcast before it was really anything. And for those of you not based in San Diego, Cleantech San Diego is just extremely in the know of everything that's happening within the clean tech community. So very excited to have Jason be here. We can bring Jason on, and then also just, excited to learn more about what they're doing. So Jason, thank you for being here at the Green Summit today.
Hey Dylan, thanks so much for having me. It's good to be here. Good to see you. It's been a while.
It has, yeah. Hopefully next time around, we'll do this in person. We'll sit down with each other, but in the meantime, Zoom it is. But let's kind of dive right into it. Like I said, Cleantech San Diego is extremely influential and works with some amazing organizations here in San Diego. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about what Cleantech San Diego is?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And again, Dylan, thanks for allowing me to be here, and thanks for putting this platform together for us all to talk about what we're up to. And before I get started, let me just say I'm extremely jealous of Carl's garden. It's good to be in San Diego, but when you see that greenery in the UK, it makes me jealous. So thanks, Carl, for starting us off the way you did. A little bit about Cleantech San Diego. So we were actually, at the end of the day, we're a trade association, and we were founded in 2007 by leaders from the private, public, and academic sectors who really recognize the clean tech industry as the next great economic opportunity for the San Diego region. The state of California at the time, Carl alluded to Margaret Thatcher. I'll make a reference to Governor Schwarzenegger. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was governor, passed AB 32, which is our Global Climate Solutions Act, and really set California on a path forward around renewable energy, sustainability, climate action. And so we in San Diego really realized that we were in a pretty unique position to not only help advance the state's efforts, but really catalyze on the economic opportunities that this industry was going to create. And when we first launched this organization almost 15 years ago now, we counted roughly about 100 companies in this region that were doing business in this space. We obviously have an abundant amount of sunshine here in Southern California. We are fortunate to have a large military presence in our region. We actually are home to the world's largest military personnel in the world. And because of our geography being adjacent to Mexico, having the Pacific Ocean on the west coast, Camp Pendleton to the north of us, and Imperial Valley to the east of us, we're kind of our own little microgrid. And we really saw an opportunity to really advance the causes in the renewable energy space. At the time, SDG&E, and still today, was really focused on renewable energy procurement. Today, we get about 50% of our energy from renewable energy resources. And we're home to Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And if you go back to your days of watching Al Gore on Inconvenient Truth, and he shows the curve, that's the Keeling curve. That science is all based here in San Diego. And so we have found that through our partnerships with the public sector, with the private sector, with academia, this industry and this region is really poised to be successful. So that's a little bit about who we are, Dylan. And I think, as we've seen this industry grow in our region, we now have about, and by we, I mean the clean tech industry in the San Diego region. We have about an $8.2 billion impact on our regional economy. We employ almost 40,000 people in this space. A couple of years ago, it was important to note that was more than any, that was more employees in the clean tech sector in San Diego alone versus the entire coal industry in the United States. Fortunately, right now, we don't have to throw that fact out too often. But this industry is growing in our region. It's thanks to a lot of political leadership, both at the state and local level, and now obviously at the federal level. It's thanks to the investments being made by our local utility, SDG&E. It's thanks to science being done at our local universities, including Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And it's thanks to private sector investment and just market certainty that has been created in the state. So we're seeing more and more renewable energy deployment here in our region. Fortunately, you mentioned earlier just the cost of solar panels. You mentioned the cost of electric vehicles. Those costs are declining rather quickly. And so we are seeing now that, even if you don't care about the environment, even if you don't care about your greenhouse gas emissions, it makes economic sense to be more sustainable and to use more renewable energy. And I hope and I think that that's going to continue to project San Diego in the future.
That's amazing. And I appreciate you hyping up San Diego because it is a beautiful city. So for those of you who are interested in coming, great place for what we're talking about. In addition to just being beautiful, we've got the ocean, we've got Mexico right here, sunny a lot of the time. So you're bringing up a lot of great points. And I love just hearing, those hard numbers about the actual impact, that $8.2 billion, the 40,000 employees. The local universities we have here are, some of the best in the country and in the world as well. Let's kind of bring it back. So how did you as an individual get interested in being a part of the clean tech industry and sustainability?
Well, I guess that's a good question. And unfortunately, I have to take you back to Texas. And I'm not fond of where I'm from right now, but I will say, I grew up in Texas. I worked in politics and policy in Texas in the state capitol. And one of my areas of focus was on renewable energy, land use policy, water and energy. I guess that's four focus, not areas, not one. But in Texas at the time, and this is 17 plus years ago, which doesn't seem like that long, but Texas was really building out its wind resources. And even today generates a significant amounts of wind energy. And the district that my boss represented and that I had the fortunate opportunity to work in really was from San Antonio all the way to El Paso. That's a big chunk of the state and a whole lot of nothing. But what's out there, aside from cattle, is a lot of wind resources. And so the wind industry was really starting to build out wind turbines in that part of the state. The grid hadn't yet connected them, but they were there. So I had the fortunate opportunity to work with a lot of wind developers who were doing work in that space. And I recall pretty clearly, I was in a place just northeast of where the Elon Musk rocket took off from not long ago in Van Horn, Texas, which I spent a lot of time in. But I had the opportunity to actually climb up the middle of a wind turbine and stand on top of it. It wasn't running, obviously. But I looked out over the horizon. I thought, wow, this is pretty incredible. These wind turbines are coming in. They're good for the environment. I saw the economic impact, the local communities on what those wind turbines were doing and kind of what air rights meant for landowners. And just got really interested in what that looked like. Fast forward, I ended up, like a lot of smart people do, I left Texas and moved to California, and I actually left Austin. So as a lot of Californians were coming into Austin, I thought, well, maybe I should buck this trend and move out to California. So I found myself in San Diego, worked for the local economic development corporation here for a few years. And that's right when AB 32 was being passed and right when kind of the concept of Cleantech San Diego was first starting. And so we did a study, an economic impact study, or really I think an analysis of what the industry could look like in San Diego. And based on that report, Cleantech San Diego was actually founded. So not long after that, I jumped ship and went over to Cleantech San Diego and worked on a grant initially focused on the biofuels industry and specifically the algae industry. And San Diego at the time was trying to position itself to be a leader in that space. And I think there's still opportunity for algae-based biofuels. They're still not necessarily cost competitive, but we did some work with UCSD and some other organizations here. And so that was kind of my start into the San Diego clean tech scene, and have been with the organization for about 10 years now, and really proud of what we've done and where we've come, where this industry has come locally. I've noted that in my previous comments that it's grown from an economic perspective, but just because you said you like numbers, Dylan, I'll throw out a little more for you if I can. We in San Diego, we are one of the nation's leader in rooftop solar installations. We go back and forth between us and LA. I don't even know this year kind of if we are one or two, but we're one of those, and either one of those are good. We also are home to the world's largest lithium battery storage facility in the world, thanks to an investment made by LS Power here. So as we see more and more renewable energy being generated in our region, we need to store it, and we can talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We've also got 53,000 electric vehicles on the road here. I mentioned Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I mentioned our military. But we're just, I'm proud of this organization. I'm proud of the industry here because, I got into this kind of understanding, again, the environmental economic benefits of what this industry means. And I've been able to see that through a ton of work that's being done here in the region. really prove itself to be true. And I think here in San Diego, we're a model for, I hope a model for the rest of the country. But I think, given a focus of this on this space here in our region, I found my place. I found, kind of just based on what I was doing in the past from a policy perspective, that San Diego continues to be a leader and is poised to continue to be a leader. Not necessarily just because of what's happening at the state level, not necessarily what's now happening at the federal level, but really because of the local investments and the local policies that are being made in this region.
I think it's really cool how you were with the San Diego EDC and kind of helped found the organization and then moved your way over to there. What was it like, and the San Diego EDC, huge friend of the Green Summit, they helped us promote it. So thank you to those guys. What was it like in the very initial days of Cleantech San Diego, just getting it off the ground? And I mean, thinking back, 10 years later, like you guys are involved with, nearly every major company and organization here. So what was it like back then? And then how's that kind of changed along the way to what you guys are working on a day-to-day basis today?
Yeah, so it's not 10 years, it's 14 years. So let me add on 4 years to that. It was scrappy. It was, and I wasn't around in kind of the first year, but came on board quickly. But we had a lot of people wondering if we were doing the right thing, if they were investing in an organization that wasn't going to be around that long, and if they were, what were we actually going to be up to? When we first started this organization, we were really focused on market certainty and just making sure that as policies were enacted at the state level, that just created opportunities for the industry. We knew that if this didn't make economic sense from a business perspective, then where were we going to go, and where was kind of this effort going to go? And we knew the private sector played a really key role in it. And so, we didn't see a lot of companies in the space. We obviously saw some small kind of mom and pop solar installers, and some of those are still around. But we had to lean on kind of the corporate community here, the law firms, the accounting firms, banks, to really set us up. And fortunately, we saw some early opportunities. We saw that there was some significant opportunities to work with cities around the region, and to help them convert their streetlights to LEDs. Again, huge environmental opportunities because of that, but cities were saving money by a simple swap out. And we were able to lead that program. There was also some clean renewable energy bonds. They were known as Krebs Bonds coming out from the federal level, that were really intended to allow public agencies to do some energy retrofits. We coalesced some partners around those dollars. And I think at the time, received more kind of Krebs investments than any other city in the region. And that was because we were able to pull together the necessary partners in our region to really think about those dollars. And whether or not those dollars ended up being used, I think is still TBD. And I don't know that I know the answer to that, but it really got a lot of public agencies, private sector folks just understanding the opportunity. Where we are today, we've seen this industry grow. We are a small organization. There's 6 of us. We like to appear bigger than we actually are, but we're using my word scrappy again. We're pretty nimble and scrappy, and have been able to adjust to the industry and really track the industry. And as I mentioned earlier, the algae-based biofuels, we saw that as an opportunity. Didn't really come to the fruition that we were hoping it to, so we moved on. But we kept finding just opportunities and making sure that we were supporting the industry and that we were supporting our members. Spent a lot of time in the early days supporting renewable energy development out in Imperial County, which again is the county just to the east of us. Huge opportunities for large-scale solar out there. They're now doing a lot of work in geothermal and lithium extraction, and there's a lot of press, rightfully so, coming out about the opportunities out there. We're seeing a lot more and more kind of microgrids and in-basin generation opportunities coming to fruition here. And probably the program that I'm most excited about, and I think something, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that I think will be really cemented as Cleantech San Diego's legacy, is the launch of the Southern California Energy Innovation Network. So 6 years ago now, we were actually awarded a grant from the California Energy Commission to launch the Southern California Energy Innovation Network. I'll call it SEEN from now on, to really support the next wave of energy entrepreneurs. We knew we had a talented bench of energy experts in our region. We knew we had organizations here that were providing support for the startups, but those two efforts weren't coming together. And we really wanted to make sure that as we saw more and more technology development coming out of the universities, coming out of someone's garage, that we were in a position to support them. And so this initiative was really launched to support entrepreneurs, but to really make sure that they have access to the private sector companies that we work with. And probably most importantly, and what I think is really kind of our sweet spot, is we just have all these domain experts here in San Diego, these folks that have spent their career in the energy industry, that can work with startups and help them really understand the market potential. Not to discredit kind of serial entrepreneurs or those that have been there and done that. Those people are important, and they're definitely important to this region. But for us, we've got energy experts here in this region that are really making sure that we're supporting the next growth and the next phase of energy entrepreneurs in our region. So that program is led by Marty Turok in my office, by Zach Dobbin in my office, by Natalie Toon in my office. We work with the 3 universities here. We work with other organizations throughout our region. We work with folks. Our service territory for that is just not San Diego. It's also Imperial County, who I've talked about, but it's also in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino, Riverside counties. And there's so much opportunity out there. There's some incredible work being done out there by the University of California, Riverside. So much logistics that are happening out in the San Bernardino region, opportunities for renewable energy development. So we're working with all these partners throughout our 4 counties and really supporting energy entrepreneurs. And since our founding of that program, we've worked with 56 companies. 39 of those are still active in our program. They employ almost 400 people. They've raised close to $250 million since coming into the program. But we're really seeing those companies as really the next wave of this industry here in our region. And I'm glad that we're supporting them. We didn't know when we launched this. We thought, there's probably 10 or so that we can work with. And once we kind of brought those into the program, we were a little nervous about what was going to happen next. And we just can't keep up with all the activity that's happening here in our region. And I think we have solidified a relationship with the California Energy Commission that has proven to be beneficial for us. It's proven to be beneficial for entrepreneurs. And last year, the California Energy Commission did their first kind of innovation showcase and brought together entrepreneurs from all over the state. And I believe, I may get this wrong, but I believe 4 of those 6 awards that the California Energy gave out to innovations, to early stage entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs, went to San Diego companies. Most people think of, and I'm not going to bash the Bay Area, and I definitely am not going to bash our friends up in LA, but people think when they're thinking of energy entrepreneurs, when they're thinking of innovation, that a lot of that's coming out of the Bay Area, that a lot of that's coming out of LA. But when it comes to energy technology and energy companies, San Diego is holding its own. And I think we're in a good position to attract capital to this region. Our entrepreneurs are already doing that. We're attracting grants. They're going after SBIR grants and DOE grants and CEC grants and being really successful with those. So we're really excited about the potential of the entrepreneurs that we're working with. A couple of them have already gone public. They're out there, they've got customers, they're raising capital. I think it's a really exciting time, and I'm proud of the organization for supporting those. I'm proud of our partners, the private sector that are taking off at their hats and rolling up their sleeves to work with these entrepreneurs. And just the team is really making sure that the work we do is intentional to support these entrepreneurs and to ultimately help them get their technology to market and grow their business here in San Diego.
That's awesome. You bring up a lot of really good points, and I want to touch on a couple. So one, when I first moved to San Diego, I really moved here for the weather, for the beach, and that's kind of the overall public perception of San Diego to people who haven't been here. And the reason I stayed and the reason I love it so much is because it's such a great city for supporting entrepreneurship. And I think an overall theme of green.org has always been supporting those entrepreneurs who have a vision and giving them the resources to scale and build and grow. And I think it's kind of cool how, as a smaller organization, I don't want to say small in a bad way, but you're able to pivot and you can look at projects and say, okay, this is working, let's stick with it. Or nope, not happening, let's move on to the next one. Because you can easily get caught up in kind of that bureaucracy of different projects and things. And it's nice to be able to actually kind of pivot quickly. But what I also like about Cleantech San Diego is you work with some of the biggest organizations and companies in San Diego, $1 billion companies, publicly traded. but at the same time, you're working with solopreneurs and tech entrepreneurs and providing them with those resources. For you, you know, you've kind of seen, I'm sure, a lot of these entrepreneurs grow and build their businesses. Do you have any moments that stick out in your mind where you're like talking to someone or you see their product and you're like, man, this is really like the future right here. Like this idea has a powerful impact? Because I've seen some companies here in San Diego, some electric vehicle companies, some solar companies, and other people that are even going to be on here today and tomorrow. I'm like, man, like this is the future right here. So what are some kind of stories or moments or people or things that you can share where you're really excited and you're like, man, this is really coming together?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll say, I mean, there's a lot of them. And I think, you know, there's a lot of people in this space. There's a lot of smart folks in this space that are just doing incredible things. And they're getting notoriety for it, rightfully so. And they're getting invested in rightfully so because, you know, money follows smart ideas, right? At least some of the time, and hopefully most of the time. But going back to the EV, I mean, let's talk about Nuvei. They're a vehicle grid integration company. They're based here in San Diego. Have done a lot of work on campus at UCSD. They recently just went public. They are helping cars communicate to the grid and really creating this broader network where cars are becoming more than just cars. And as they tap into the grid, they become virtual storage and virtual power plants. And there's a lot of opportunity there. And Nuvei has been, you know, and Gregory and the leadership at Nuvei have just done really an incredible job putting their product together, going to market, finding the right partners. And they're growing here in San Diego, and they are a global team with global partnerships, including EDF and others. And it's just really exciting to see that, you know, as we see more and more electric vehicles on the ground here in California, here in San Diego, there's the potential to put a pretty significant strain on the grid. And companies like Nuvei are working with utilities and others to really figure that out and make sure that as we see, again, more and more electric vehicles being adopted, especially as the price comes down, it's not just all about Tesla. There's other models on the market. You know, I think there's a huge opportunity there, and Nuvei's really cracking that and working with schools, working with school bus fleets. They're doing just an excellent job. There's another company here that I think has a lot of potential and just is doing some really amazing stuff, and that's Ivy Energy. They are really working with multifamily properties to help them do solar and to start to bill out the solar to the individual tenants of the building. That's something that it seems easy, but it's rather complicated. And Dover and the team over there are figuring that out and doing really well. There's another company in our program called Occuspace. When COVID hit, and I know we're all kind of tired of talking about COVID, but I'll talk about it for a second. But when COVID hit, you know, we didn't know where our entrepreneurs were going to land. We didn't know what, you know, we knew that the energy industry was considered critical, and that gave us a little bit of comfort. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, it was a hard time for companies to go out and raise money and just kind of figure out what they were providing in terms of their value. And Occuspace, which has sensors that go into buildings and since, you know, people in the building, people moving around in the building, really saw that as an opportunity as we start to think about buildings, you know, wanting to know who's inside and how many people are inside and really to monitor that. And they took that opportunity and just went with it. And they're working with gyms now. They're working with commercial properties. They're working with restaurants. And so that team, which is UCSD based and spun out of UCSD, and has a great story about really tapping into the on-campus resources there, has just done an incredible job. So, you know, technologies are one thing, but I think people are another. You know, there's innovation happening in the energy industry for sure. A lot of software innovation that's happening. You know, solar panels are kind of solar panels, wind turbines are wind turbines, right? But there's a lot of opportunity for innovation in the software side of things. And so these individuals that we are fortunate to work with here in San Diego, or in Imperial County and in Riverside and San Bernardino, are just really they understand the opportunity. They're developing technologies around those opportunities, and it's just really exciting to see them take off.
I'm sure it's exciting, you know, to kind of watch these companies grow and really, you know, be a part of them and provide them with the resources to grow. What's considered a win for Cleantech San Diego? Like what do you, I call pop a bottle of champagne to? What's a win for you guys?
I mean, that's not a fair question to me, Dylan, because I'll pop a bottle of champagne really any given minute for any reason. I don't need to drink to celebrate. I don't need to celebrate to drink. In fact, I noted earlier when you said it's happy hour somewhere that we should have a drink, but I didn't pour myself one. I'll wait a
Tomorrow
little
we'll do
bit.
that for sure.
All right. What I really want to see in this region, I want to see investment being made in this region. I want the rest of the world to know what's happening in San Diego and that we are a place for innovation. We're not just a military hub. We're not just a life science community. Those are two very, very important things. We're not just a place where people can come lay on the beach and eat amazing tacos and drink, great margaritas and great craft beer. There's a lot of work that's happening in the energy innovation space here. And I want to see the attention that we deserve in that space. And, you said something about being a cheerleader earlier, I think. And I mean, that's me, that's the team, right? Like, we are really, one of our primary missions is just to make sure that the rest of the world knows what's happening in San Diego from an energy innovation space. But I want to see technology put in the ground here. I want to see us generate as much renewable energy as we can from local assets. And that means here in San Diego, that means here in Imperial County, that potentially means off the coast. I want to see those things happen. And that's not necessarily a success of Cleantech San Diego. That's a success of this community. That's a success of our environment. And that's a success of our economy. And so the more and more we see investments being made in this region, the more and more we see smart people developing innovative solutions to meet our energy needs and to help tackle climate change. That's really where I think, that's not my success. That's not the success of this organization. That's the success of all of us. Carl talked a lot about climate change and the impact of climate change. And, we could talk about that forever, right? And I'm fortunate, and we're all fortunate here in San Diego, that we don't argue the merits of climate change anymore. It's an understood problem that we need to address. And so just seeing that the private sector and develop technologies and make investments to help us meet some of those goals, that's a win. And that's, again, a win for our region. And I think, again, that we are poised to do really great things in this space. And I hope it's my goal that San Diego continues to be a model for the rest of the world as it relates to really supporting the growth of this industry and deploying technologies that are going to help us meet our climate goals.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. And you genuinely, I've seen it just from kind of the outside, the effect that Cleantech San Diego has had on the San Diego industry. And it's been a huge part of why I've stayed in San Diego. I've worked with a lot of the, the members of Cleantech San Diego, and you guys have supported what I've been doing. So can't thank you enough. What could we do to support Cleantech San Diego?
So keep the conversation going. I think people need to understand, this isn't just a climate movement, it's an economic movement as well, right? And I think we've got to understand that investments need to be made from a financial perspective into these technologies to help meet our end goal of minimizing and mitigating the impact of climate change. So the conversations are always good. Secondly, through our Southern California Energy Innovation Network and the entrepreneurs that we're supporting, that's a community-based effort, and that's something that we should all be thinking about, is how can we help the next wave of energy entrepreneurs? So making investments, providing mentorship for these companies, giving these entrepreneurs that we're working with the platform to talk about what they're doing and their technology. It's not just about the big global companies. It is about these small technology companies that are being developed, but making sure that they're part of the conversation as well. So, these platforms, Dylan, that you're doing, the videos, the podcast, all those things are important. We can't talk about this stuff enough, especially to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world. And this is the exact moment to do it.
Couldn't agree more. Jason, thank you again. We did have someone in the Q&A ask for your email. Are you comfortable with sharing that?
Yeah, I think I can type that in right now.
Okay, perfect.
Multitask here. But yeah, Dylan, thanks again for having me here. Thanks for working with the team. We're supportive of the work you do. Let's continue to stay in touch, and maybe in March we'll do this in person. But if it's on Zoom, I'm not going to complain about it. I don't know if you're wearing shorts right now, but I am.
I'm just in my boxers from the
all right, perfect.
waist down. Yeah.
All right.
But no, Jason, thank you. Hopefully March 2022 we'll do this in person. But if not, we do have some great tacos here. We do have some great margaritas. Just another perk of living in San Diego, in addition to all the awesome, leaders in renewable energy and clean technology. Thank you again so much, Jason. For anyone interested, Jason typed out his email in the chat box, and we'll also share that with everybody afterwards. We'll share this video. And again, thank you, Jason.